November 4th, 2021. I'm Nigerian journalist Dr. KemiOlunloyo. On the Ikoyi building collapse. Ikoyi is a very highbrow area. I grew up there personally at 13 years old, 1978, and it's always been highbrow. But right now, these days, the property there is so expensive, and they build quite, very, very nice, superb luxury apartments. The building at 44 BC and D Girard Road was actually supposed to be a 3-tower luxury apartment complex. And one of them fell, as you know, the 21-story building that collapsed. It's all over the news in Nigeria and the world. Everybody's picking it up now in Canada because Canadian reporters are telling me they didn't see it at first. Now, there's some stories that are coming out everywhere. The speculations of a lot of different things that one has to really look at and focus on. The first person on the scene to address the media and the families was the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Obafemi Hamzat. And when Deputy Governor Hamzat was there, he told us that the building was actually cordoned off, in other words, sealed, since June of 2021 because of what he called abnormalities, okay? Abnormalities. And, this is a very strange word, abnormal stuff. So, like I said, the deputy governor told us that workers had just been approved to resume work on that very day, November 1st, on the high rise. So everybody was supposed to report for work. And if you know construction in Nigeria, generally, especially here in Ikoyi, you'll know that there are some people they call laborers. A van or bus will sit in the middle of somewhere and say, you want to work today? We'll pay you 2,000 naira. Young men will jump into the bus and they'll go to the construction site. Little things like carrying cement, bricks, building, doing stuff. They need the handiwork. So they take a lot of these laborers in their buses and they go to the sites and pay them the 2,000 at the end of the day. Okay. Some contractors do that. It's cheap labor, but they get the work done. So now workers were allowed to resume, on the job, said the deputy governor, But on Tuesday, it was no longer a construction site. It was a frantic rescue, scene where they were looking for a lot of people in that pancaked heap of concrete. We've seen it all. Scores are still missing, Government officials, security forces, volunteers, name it. Other construction companies, Julius Berger, the Chinese guys, everybody brought everything over there. But I did notice something. They're using some scanners now to see if they can detect bodies. Have you noticed that they didn't have sniffer dogs? This is part of the problem we have in Nigerian police. We're supposed to have sniffer dogs like abroad. And this is what contributed to recovering 98 dead bodies at Surfside condominiums in Florida, June of 2021, just 4 months ago. A similar case where a building collapsed. Surfside happened to have been moved in by people in 2019, 2021. It collapses. Now, the IGP did come. I missed him when I left. But if I were there, one question I would like to ask the IGP was, why are we not using sniffer dogs in Nigeria? We're using them in the NDLEA to sniff people who are carrying drugs. But sniffer dogs are very good in detecting human bodies, dead or alive. And that's another lesson for us to learn in Nigeria on how we have to go when it comes to search and rescue or search and recovery. Either way, everybody wants a body of their loved one. Now, the governor said the materials, there was an abnormality at the, place. So they shut it down so that things can be corrected. Now, if you guys remember at that press conference, the head of the Lagos State Building Control Agency, Ikoyi, was there with the deputy governor. They arrived together. But when they were leaving, everybody was mad at each other. If you guys visibly looked at them when they were leaving, there was an argument, they were screaming at each other, and they were all walking away to their individual cars. It's as if the governor, the deputy governor, and Bolahan were fighting at the end of the news conference. Now, only a few of us saw that very vividly, While that news conference was going on, it must have been what Bolahan said at the news conference, He's the head of the Lagos State Building Control Agency. Bola Oki said the developer used inferior materials in the construction. The materials he used, the reinforcement, are so terrible. Did you hear him when he said that? That's what he told journalists. It is so terrible, the materials he used. Whatever disagreement went on between him and Hamzat, They yelled at each other and everybody walked to their car. This is where you have to be very attentive as journalists. There are BBC Arise and people there with big cameras that could have videotaped that. But no, they didn't catch it. They were busy fighting each other. If you notice when the BBC guy was fighting somebody from a newspaper, they were blocking their view. All we heard was the BBC and the other guy cursing at each other. And you couldn't even hear the governor speak. I saw the video when I got home and I was really shocked that that's what professionalism in journalism becomes. If you guys are going to parades, you know you don't do that kind of stuff. You keep quiet and let the criminal talk, then you ask your stupid questions, which is mostly stupid. So at the end of the day, okay, the argument about this whole thing, we don't know what it was about. Now, that high-rise building is one of 3 that Foursquare Homes was putting together at the site, all right? And when I tried to call Foursquare Homes, you know their phone line to their company, it said it was no longer in service. So that's suspicious. The phone number to the company was cut off, no longer in service. That's what the provider has been saying. So who cut it off? Like I said, there's no professional presence there. Now, before I get into where Femi was, where Wale was, and all the other people involved, maybe some of the top professional presence were in the building and they died, which we're now confirming that they were in the building. Okay, Femi Oshibana's body was, reportedly brought out last night. I was called by somebody anonymous from La Cima. They said he had a steel beam, those rods go through his neck, and he possibly bled to death. They have not made a formal announcement yet on that. However, some people still have their conspiracy theories that he fled. How would he flee? Okay, he was dedicated to his projects. Every video we saw, he brought everybody on that property to pray, pastors, singers, gospel, and he even celebrated his birthday up there. Yeah, I'm just getting this information. I'll give you more information about it. Now, this situation that happened on the scene between Hamzat and Bolahan Oki, the head of the building management agency, was a little funny. That by the time Hamzat got to the governor's office, they announced that Bolahan was suspended. By evening, the governor announced himself that Bolahan Oki was suspended indefinitely. Suspended is different from indefinitely. Could it be because of what he said in front of all the media? Okay, the materials the guy used was inferior. Okay, the materials he used was so terrible. The materials he used, the reinforcement are so terrible. Now, isn't that terrible to hear the head of the building management agency saying that on a day like that? Didn't you guys seal that? If you had done that press conference before you sealed it in June, we can understand those words. But saying it on the day it collapsed, that means you knew about it. You know the reinforcement was terrible. Unfortunately, last night, a very trusted source called me and told me that Bolahan Oki allegedly, I can't say he did. There's no proof. There's no paper trail that I know of. But this man told me Bolahan Oki allegedly collected $20 million per building from Femi Oshibana to cover up that reinforcement, to cover up that bad, reinforcement, bad material that he was talking about at the press conference. So there is a connection between what happened, what he said, and what this tipster told me. If in fact it's true, Bolahan collected 60 million naira. And in that case, it would be a bribe to cover up the bad reinforcement. So it's very important that Bolahan is called into this panel to testify. It is very, very important. These things are going to get very legal to the point that you might even hear that he's not showing up at the panel. People didn't show up at the SARS panel. CNN didn't show up. You know what I mean? Some people didn't show up. But at the end of the day, Bolahan may not even show up. Some people are already saying on my page that these panels are a joke. Nothing's going to happen. Okay, well, let's see what happens then. So at the end of the day, he's being accused now of taking 60 million bribe for the 3 buildings, 20 per building. Who's going to prove that to us? It's not like Surfside, Florida. The condominiums, the engineer, the structural engineer, the, owner, what's the other person's name? Developer, all of them are alive. So people had to face big courts and judges and panels and all that. In this case, the developer, who is supposed to be Wale Bob Husseini, who was on his way to America, was called to meet Femi in the building. Femi called him and said, please just stop by. I want you to see something. Only God knows what Femi wanted him to see. But he stopped by on his way to the airport. You saw his driver in front of the building crying so profusely that my boss is in there. My boss is in there. at the time the meeting was going on, Wale did not get there in time, the developer. Okay, the owner of the building, Foursquare Homes, has a right to call the developer to the property at any time. By the time Wale got to the property, even though he was on his way to the airport for a later flight that night, the meeting had ended on the ground floor and they went to the 8th floor. Wale entered the building, they went to the 8th floor. And with him was 2 Mopol officers, police officers who were bodyguards to Femi, and 2 ladies, the PAs, Onyinye and Nifemi. And they went upstairs together in the elevator. When they came out of the elevator, now let's say this, before they came out of the elevator, as they were going from the ground floor to the 8th floor, I don't know about building houses. Did something go wrong in that elevator that moved that whole building? I don't know. But I'm saying that they were going to the 8th floor. Wale called his driver and told his driver that he'll be out in about 20 minutes, okay, that he should park in a good place. Guys, the car outside, Femi's car was also outside. At the end of the day, the driver outside was very critical to my investigation because that driver told me that his boss called and that's how they knew they were going to the 8th floor. When they came out of that elevator in the 8th floor is when the building collapsed because this guy had a time lapse on his phone. You can see the time the boss called him on the phone and the time the explosion or the building, collapsed. Now, guys, remember what I said about Surfside, Florida condominiums. This is a place where they're already living in. Electricity, water, gas cookers, everything could even make the structure fall and even explode more. All right, this is the same situation with Grenfell in London, but that was a fire that consumed a lot of people. Okay, and the building materials were cheap and it burnt right through. And we know what happened and who went to jail for that one. A lot of building safety problems, issues. It's happened in London, it's happened in America, it's now happening in Nigeria. So let's go back to the whole point of what could have gone wrong. The state has to investigate a lot of things, okay? The panel has architects, people who are in the National Society of Engineers and whatnot. So they're in good hands, but the oath of secrecy kills it for me. I will have more on this story as it comes in. But one thing I do want to say is that the panel must look into explosives and other causes because I'm also looking at the Oklahoma Federal Building. That was a bomb there. But the way this rubble came down, was there an explosive in the building? Did something blow up in the building? Something they were working with. And now I'm hearing from a man that called me around 2 o'clock this morning saying that my boys all died in there. They have not recovered all 5. Who are your boys? This guy said we were the air conditioning and refrigeration people. They were all asked to report on that Monday, the 1st. There were people there with the water company, the borehole people were there, everybody was there. Doors, this is an apartment building. People that are going to put the doors in, you can see the holes in the doors. People that are going to put the balconies, stuff in, the railings. There was almost 200 people in there. But the 200 I'm getting from this contractor whose boys died, they were the electric people. I said electric, but they were the refrigeration and cooling people. There were also electric people there. This man is telling me he lost his employees, but he's also telling me, anonymously, of course, that he does not know why, people are saying 50 people. He's saying in that building alone, the 21-story building was almost 200 people. Okay, the other sides of the building, he doesn't know how many people were in there. But it was in that 21-story that all of them were in. That was the problematic one. So it's like somebody dies, okay, I go out, I shoot somebody, kill them, and then I show up at their funeral and I'm carrying the casket and nobody even knows that I killed them. This is the way I saw this Bolahan thing. Okay, if Bolahan actually collected that money and covered this thing up, him going in front of that press conference, he may have even snitched on government officials. So at the end of the day, only God knows why he was suspended indefinitely, but he will have to come to that panel to clear his name. So I'm KemiOlunloyo, Dr. Kemi. I will update you again later tonight, tomorrow. Just keep watching. And don't forget to support my work because a lot of what I'm giving you, you're not going to see it on the mainstream media and you're not going to see it in the panel. I'm going to give you straight up what is going on.